The phone call that morning felt different. It wasn't the usual routine kind of call. The voice on the other end struggled to speak. It was trembling, filled with an unsettling sense of urgency, and something inside me just knew. Devon. Hearst, someone we all knew for his quiet strength and steady presence, was gone. Suddenly. Unexpectedly. It didn't feel real. It felt like a bad dream, one you hope to wake up from, but it never ends. How could someone so full of life, so full of energy and passion, just disappear? This wasn't just the loss of a man, it was the loss of something much bigger. It was a wave of grief that hit everyone, his family, his friends, his neighbors, his co-workers, even people who barely knew him. Because Devon wasn't just anybody. He was the kind of person who made you feel safe just by being there. The kind who reminded you what really matters in life, even if you hadn't realized you needed reminding. Devon wasn't famous. He didn't crave attention or accolades. You wouldn't find his name splashed across the headlines or mentioned on social media. He didn't chase applause. He wasn't the type to walk into a room and demand it all to himself. No, he was just a man. One of the most ordinary, unassuming men you could ever meet. But there was something extraordinary about him, a depth to his being that made him unforgettable. He was a father, a husband, a friend, someone who lived with honesty, integrity, kindness, and an unwavering commitment to others. To his kids, Devon was a superhero. Not because he had superpowers, but because he always showed up. Always. Whether it was for a school play, a soccer game, or just an ordinary Saturday, Devon was there, without fail. To his wife, he was a rock. He was steady, a partner through every high and every low. She often said that she never had to worry about where Devon stood. His love and commitment were constant, unwavering. To his friends, he was the listener, the quiet one who didn't judge, but who always had your back. He was the kind of person who knew when you needed to talk, and even when you didn't say a word, he could sense when you needed support. That morning, when the news came, Devon's family was left in a state of shock. There were no signs, no warnings, just a sudden cardiac arrest that took him away. He was healthy, he jogged every morning, ate well, and had no known heart problems. It wasn't supposed to happen to him, but it did. At the funeral, one of his closest friends, Derek, stood up to speak. His voice cracked as he said something that stuck with everyone. Devon was the healthiest guy I knew. If this can happen to him, it can happen to any of us. That sentence hit everyone hard. It wasn't just grief, it was a wake-up call. Life is fragile, and it doesn't always give you time to prepare. The truth is, we live with the assumption that we'll have time. Time to say everything we need to say. Time to fix the things we wish we could change. Time to love better. But sometimes, we don't get that time. The funeral wasn't grand or flashy. There were no long speeches. It was quiet, honest, just like Devon. His wife stood, holding their daughter's hand. She didn't speak much, but her silence spoke. Volumes. Her grief was deep, raw, and the kind of pain only those who loved him deeply could understand. People cried, not just for the loss, but because of how deeply Devon had touched their lives. He had been a constant in so many people's worlds. His daughter, Layla, only 8 years old, stood with a small paper in her hand. Her voice trembled as she read, "My daddy made pancakes every Sunday. He told the best stories. I don't. Want new pancakes? I just want my daddy back." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. How do you comfort a child who's just lost her hero? Devon wasn't loud, but his actions were powerful. He wasn't the type to boast or seek recognition, but he changed lives. One friend shared how Devon had spent an entire weekend fixing a neighbor's roof during a snowstorm. Another person shared how Devon had quietly worked a second job for months to help a friend pay hospital bills. He never told anyone. He didn't want recognition. He just wanted to help. He believed in doing the right thing even if no one was watching. That was Devon. Quiet kindness, silent strength. At work, he stayed late to help others. He didn't compete with his colleagues, he supported them. He didn't lead by position, he led by example. One coworker said, "Devon made this place better," and he never asked for anything in return. The pastor shared something powerful during the service. He said, Devon wasn't loud, but when he walked into a room, people felt safer. That's not just presence, that's purpose. His strength wasn't physical. It wasn't even the kind of strength you could measure in pounds or reps. It was emotional. It was the strength to give people space to be themselves. He lifted others without needing to be seen, without ever drawing attention to himself. He didn't need the spotlight. He was already the brightest light in the room. Later during the service, his 13-year-old son Caleb stepped forward. He was nervous. His hands shook as he stood at the podium. But when he spoke, his father's voice lived in his words. My dad wasn't famous, but he was the best man I've ever known. He once told me, real strength is being kind when no one's watching. I want to be strong like him. That moment stayed with everyone. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a speech that stirred up grand applause. It was genuine. It was real. Devon didn't chase greatness. He lived it every single day. He woke up early to get the kids ready for school, made the lunches, and sent them off with a smile. He mowed the lawn, ran errands, called his mom every Sunday without fail. Nothing glamorous, nothing flashy, just showing up day in and day out for the people he loved. That was his gift, not just being present, but being all in. After Devon passed, something began to shift in the community. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years started checking in on each other. People who barely knew one another began reaching out, reconnecting. It was as if Devon had left behind more than memories. He had left behind a legacy. One local man, who had only spoken to Devon once at a barbecue, showed up at the funeral and said, I barely knew him, but somehow I felt like I lost someone close. That's the kind of man he was. At his workplace, a wellness program was launched in his name, offering free health checks, mental health days, and wellness resources. The break room now holds a small plaque that reads, Work hard, be kind, be like Devon. At his children's school, teachers began telling Devon's story, not to scare the kids, but to inspire them, to teach kindness, empathy, and how to show up when it matters most. Devon's favorite charity saw a surge in donations. His old football team now starts each game with a moment of silence in his memory. Even strangers began to feel connected to his story. People online shared posts, using the hashtag #AsLiveLikeDevon. His story was featured in local news, not because of the tragedy of his death, but because of how he lived. Devon never planned to start a movement. He just lived his values, and that became his legacy. Doctors still don't know exactly what happened. Some say stress, others think it was genetics. But in the end, the reason didn't change the result. He was gone. Life doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it just stops. The final song at the funeral was See You Again. As it played, the room stood still. Some closed their eyes. Others held each other. And everyone in their own way asked the same questions. When did I last say I love you? When did I last slow down and just be present? When did I last thank someone I care about? Because Devon's passing wasn't just a goodbye, it was a reminder to live fully, to love fiercely, and to never take a single moment for granted. The local diner where Devon had breakfast every Sunday now keeps his favorite table empty. A small sign reads, Reserved for our friend. Simple, quiet, like Devon. And that's the thing. Devon didn't need a stage. He didn't need a spotlight. His actions spoke louder than any words. He showed us that kindness matters. That being real matters. That showing up matters. He didn't live for attention. He paid attention to people, to details, to life. So if you're hearing this, pause. Call someone you care about. Say the thing you've been holding back. Apologize. Forgive. Reconnect. Don't wait for a tragedy to remind you of what's important. Because Devon's story reminds us, hug your family a little longer. Take care of your health. Be kind, even when it's hard. Show up, even when you're tired. Live today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Because the best tribute we can give to Devon isn't just remembering how he lived. It's choosing to live better because of him.